A really good movie or a really good story will keep the interest of the audience alive by bringing in surprises, maybe even mistakes or accidents as the story unfolds. An author or a director who's really competent will bring in the surprise as a natural part of the story. A really good surprise sustains our interest and shocks us just when we thought we knew how the story was going to turn out. That kind of twist or turn in the story, although it is a surprise when it arrives, when you come to think about it afterwards, it turns out to have been something inevitable all along. So when you look back on the story, it makes much more sense with the surprise than it would have done without it. You might say the surprise was there from the beginning, and the moment of surprise in the drama is just the moment when the surprise is revealed to us. Now, the Jews had their story, the history of salvation. It was told in the books of the law and the prophets, all that history, prophecy, poetry, stories, etc., that make up what we call the Old Testament. Devout Jews knew every twist and turn of that story that was still being written. They had their hopes and their dreams, and they argued over how it might end. Would it all end in a big surprise? The incarnation came, and then the real surprise, the resurrection. It happened on, quote unquote, the third day. Most people know that we call it the third day because the Romans did not count the days the way we do. They include the beginning and the end of the period in the count, so that the day after tomorrow is the third day. Day 1 is today, day 2 is tomorrow, and day 3 is the day after tomorrow. For two of the disciples of Jesus, the crucifixion was the end of the story. As they walked to Emmaus on Easter Sunday afternoon, it was like the second viewing of the film. They were going over the whole story again in their conversation. It was as if they had watched the whole movie and they were trying to figure it out in their mind. They discussed the twists and the turns in the story of Jesus and their own expectations about how it should have turned out, and their sadness and their disappointment at what had actually happened. The stranger who walked with them, although they didn't recognize him, was Jesus, risen from the dead. He helped them to understand how it all fitted together. All the mistakes and all the surprises of the Old Testament were part of the story. It all clicked into place for them at the supper table. They recognized the stranger when he took the bread and broke it. Suddenly they were shocked into the realization that it was Jesus and that he had really risen from the dead. This is what the phrase, according to the scriptures, is all about. It is fitted grammatically to the resurrection because the resurrection is the point of the whole story of Jesus, and it applies to the whole story of our salvation. So the topic of the next talk is the Ascension.